weren't all three junk bond traders, you know? That they had a good smattering and that those people would fit that board the best. And they would say, thank you for applying, but we've chosen Joe. How do you think that board operates? Does it operate the same as another board? It does not.
Did they have representation from every one of the...
Yes, there's, I think, 2 pastors. There's a student that sits on the board. There is, I think, 2 or 3 parents that sit on the board. There's a teacher that sits on the board. It is a business model board, not a representation. They looked at what the needs are of the board and filled the needs of the board and didn't do all churches are represented. There may be some churches in that constituency that have no members on the board. None. Is that okay? As long as you know going in that that's what it is. And they sold this to their constituency, and it is working. Do you like that model?
Yes, but is there a rotation for the pastors or for the churches so that probably at some time, not especially, but if there are 15, that there's a rotation and one doesn't stay there forever?
There is a rotation, and I'm not sure, but they've said right up front, and the other thing they did is they took it out of a constituency school and made it a conference school. They made it a conference school so that nobody could fight over the constituency issues. Now, I didn't say that, and I should have. But they've said right up front, we're not going to guarantee that every church is going to have a representative. You have to trust us, and because of the model that they built, there was trust because they knew that those were the best people, best qualified people to run that board, and that board would be a well-run board, and so they trusted the church that didn't have a representative, trusted the board to look out for their interests because they were a good board.
They still have the factor of the people having, the members having their children in an Adventist school if they're of age. Is that still a factor, or was that
I don't know the answer to that. The question is, were members that did not have mission-appropriate kids and they did not have their kids in the Adventist school, were they allowed to be on the board? I think that's the answer. That's the question. And I don't know the answer to that. I think that was not taken into consideration. And I think what's happened since then is some of those parents have put their kids in the school because now they see a well-run, they see a business model school and things happening. Is it perfect? No, but it's a great plan.
Is that a paradigm that can work for, say, an elementary or junior academy?
Is that a paradigm that can work for junior academies or elementary schools? I think yes. I think it's more difficult if it's a constituent base than it is if it's a conference base, because you always have that church that says, well, I'm putting in, $20,000 out of our combined budget, but yet we don't have a say on the board, and the board makes a decision that that church doesn't like, and it's really easy to say, well, they've disenfranchised us. So I think that there's a little more difficulty there.
Do they turn money into the conference then, and then the conference turns around?
Yeah, the subsidy comes from the conference office, and each church in the conference then pays a subsidy, what's the word I want? They're charged a subsidy that goes to the conference office. Yes. Yeah, up here first.
I'm listening to this and it really sounds wonderful. But like you said, if it's a school and the contiguous is one church, and then you have some very
Well, I think you have to do your research and you have to do your homework and say, do we want to raise the quality of our board? Do we want either, well, first of all, how do I want to say this? Every board member is an educator. Do you believe that? Every board member is an educator. Do the board members see themselves as educators? Whose job is it to make them educators? See? That's the board chair and the administrator of the school. It's their responsibility to orient that board and get them to be educators. Let's go through this quickly and then I'll answer some more questions. 'Cause some of this will answer should meet the needs of the constituency. There's functions of the board, and this goes through, there are 10 slides here of functions of the board. Unless you do this kind of orientation, if you let your board just operate out of just flow, and they just go do their thing every month, and if you don't, as the administrator, say there are roles that you can and cannot play as a board, and you must be an educator to serve on this board, and you must be neutral, and it goes through all these issues about what the role of the board member is. Unless you start educating and holding them accountable to that, then this kind of plan will never work. But once you get this kind of orientation inculcated into that board, then it's easier for that board to say, now wait a minute, are we functioning? Do we have the right members on our board to function the way the board now should function? Because now we understand how the board should function. We know what the roles and the functions are. Do we have the right members here to do that? And then if the answer to that is no, then how are we going to change that? And that's when you go to a business model to change it.
This is going to sound like a weird question, but it's out of something that's actually happened to school as that. What happens if the church board disbands the school board?
What happens if the church board disbands the school board? You better get on the phone to your conference superintendent immediately. Does the church board have the right to disband the school board? Whose employee is the teacher? Sometimes you don't know. That's a tough one. That's one that, that's a good opportunity to develop a business model in that school. Because now you don't have now is a good opportunity to develop that.
It would depend on a constitution too.
That's right.
You need to have a constitution that will outline who has what responsibility.
And there are many schools, Kelly, thank you. There are many schools that do not have constitutions. You should not operate your school without a constitution. If you as an administrator do not have a constitution at your school, you are living on the edge. And as I said yesterday, it's not in the safe part of the edge. You're on the cliff.
And you need a lawyer, you need legal help to review the Constitution. So there are no more days when a good pastor will help you review the Constitution.
And if you go to NAD website, there are sample K-12 and elementary constitutions available on our website that's at least a beginning point for you.
It would seem to me like the plan you just presented, the AAA, it would seem to me like if the churches would pick the leaders that they put on the board by application process, that it would help a lot too. You know,
That's right.
If they knew the person's strengths and weaknesses, and you weren't putting the same people or the same strengths, same weakness, kind of you know, something to what we talked about yesterday, you know, there's all kinds of strengths, all kinds of weaknesses.
That's right. I think you have to first define the roles that you want. And the comment was, at a local school board, if you had an application process, even for the board that you do have, you open it up and said to the church as a whole, we have 2 openings on the school board this year. If you would like to apply, fill out the application and send it in. It's still important to have functions defined before you do that process. Otherwise, you get individuals that have burdens that they want. They have bees in their bonnets. They have particular things that they want to solve on that no good, lousy, rotten school board, and they're going to fix it, and they're the ones that are going to apply, and that may not be the person that you want on that board. Does that make sense? So if you have a function you want to fill, I have an attorney, I have a business, I have a lay, then it's easier to fill that. Do we have sample application forms? We're moving toward an online registration process. Again, if we have one company, we can build within that structure an online application process so that we then have an application that is legal and and we'll move all the data when the parent fills that out online. It moves it into a holding area in the database, and so when they do register, you click one button and then you have all that information that the parents have entered into your database, and you don't have to re-enter all the information. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I missed that. No, we do not have that. I can get that and put it up if you'd like me to. Okay, if you don't see it up in a week, email me, okay?
Who are those resumes addressed or applications, where those addressed, and who makes the final decision?
Who are the applications addressed to, and who makes the final decision? In the case of the Atlanta Adventist Board, when the conference office took over the school and made it a conference school, the conference, they set up a steering committee, which were the conference officers and the conference superintendents and the pastor of the largest church. That was the steering committee. And that committee then sat down and decided, well, first of all, they had this huge visioning process. They went through all the churches, the whole conference, how they were going to revamp the school, and they got a buy-in.